Thanks so much for joining us for another Gray Institute case study. Got a special one for you today. It's special in a number of ways, but one reason it's special because it's Keith Bozick, one of our family members from Gray Institute. Another reason it's special is because it really emphasizes and it really brings to light the significance of understanding applied functional science. So Keith is an extremely good hockey player. However, 6 weeks ago now, he suffered a grade 2 medial collateral ligament injury. Now, this was confirmed via MRI and also confirmed clinically. He opened up inflection, but had a pretty good end range to that, so we knew we were still hooked on an extension. He opened up a little bit, and he had the typical symptoms when he first walked in, like, I think I did something wrong. It was his right knee. If you come down and take a look at my right knee, and it's always a dead giveaway when I ask him a question, when you're hobbling around, if you take a right-hand turn, are you okay? And they go, yep. But if you take a left-hand turn, are you okay? They go, no. And the reason is going to be obvious when we really understand the biomechanics of the medial collateral ligament. Now, in applied functional science, it's all about understanding the truth, coming up with strategies, and then revealing the techniques. And so we're going to take you through what happened between week 3 and now, which is week 6. We believe that's the critical time of healing. That's the time the ligament's going, hey, I've been ripped, I don't know who I am, I've had some rest here, but it seems like we're kind of everything, all my friends are atrophying, but I need to know who I am. And we know that we can tell ligaments who they are by putting the normalized stress on them. However, the thing we can do that's wrong, that's not safe, is to put too much abnormal stress on. So it's kind of that, okay, we have to have the right amount of stress, but not too much stress. Therefore, we must know what the medial collateral ligament does. And gait, it is a primary ligament to really help us control what happens when the foot hits the ground. Now, when the foot hits the ground, if you kind of sneak down and take a look at my foot here, anytime the foot goes into this motion, or what we call eversion, or a lot of people will call it pronation, those are all good terms, you can see that my knee goes into abduction, or some people would call that valgusing. That's kind of a neat name. Valgus is a position, the abduction is the motion. So we know as soon as that hits, the medial collateral ligament takes a little bit of a hit. So we can see that anytime that foot goes into eversion, there's going to be more stress on the medial collateral ligament. Now, if you sneak up here to my hip, and again, the reason we're emphasizing the foot and the hip is because it's the foot and the hip that controls the knee and the medial collateral ligament. We see that when the hip goes through flexion, we're going to see the knee go through flexion. However, when that hip goes through adduction, we're going to see that in gait, the knee goes through abduction. However, without moving, without actually going through some locomotion, you can see that anytime my hip or foot creates a motion in the frontal plane that creates abduction in the knee, that's going to be what we would call an advanced stress. That's going to have to be given to the knee later rather than sooner. Anything that actually causes the opposite, if the foot inverts or supinates, or now we get adduction, we're going to see we get more of a varus stress or adduction stress to the knee, not much stress to the medial collateral ligament. The big stress that the medial collateral ligament wants us to appreciate is rotation. Now, this is where the paradox comes in, because if you go down to my foot again, if I rotate this way, in other words, Keith told me as soon as he would make a left-hand turn, oh my goodness, this is when I felt the pain and instability. You can see that by me rotating this way, my foot everts, but my hip goes through external rotation. And so it's like, wait a minute, external rotation puts a rotary stress and a valgus stress on the knee, and that rotation of the foot with the eversion, we would call that abduction of the foot and eversion of the subtalar joint, puts that stress on the knee. So it's commonsensical that before Keith goes back and competes again in all the activities he's involved in, especially in hockey, we're going to have to ultimately put that stress into his knee pretty progressively and aggressively. But as far as where we start in week 3, we're going to literally go the opposite. We're going to look and consider the sagittal plane. The sagittal plane is one of those that a little bit of flexion doesn't hurt it, a little bit of extension doesn't hurt it, although we find that when the hip is extended and the foot's behind us, the foot's inverting, and therefore the knee is less at risk. So therefore, we're going to have to use our thought process to say, okay, we have to have a progression of stress based on the motions at the hip and foot. we have to have a progression of stress based on what gravity and ground reaction force is doing, and therefore we'll probably start partial weight bearing, go to full weight bearing, and then go to weight bearing with some translation and rotation, and then we'll ultimately get into some what we would call aggressive, where we're going from our lunges to our leaps, and then ultimately to our jumps, to our drops, and to our hops. Now, what's neat about this is they'll all go along in a progression that's quite consistent. We'll start with when the knee is not at risk to creating that abduction force, or from right now we'll call it a valgus stress on the knee. And again, we have to remember the valgus stress is also related to the rotary stress of the knee. So if we just think about that, and if I said, hey, I want Keith to do some squatting as we started at week 3, we would say, okay, if we're going to squat, we're going to put most of the weight on the unaffected leg, but we're going to position the affected leg in a way that we know we're not going to get any abnormal stress to the medial collateral ligament. There'll be stress there, but it's impossible to have abnormal stress. So we'll go, wait a minute, if I have a little bit of extension, and if I have a little bit of internal rotation, and if I have a little bit of adduction, I can create that. So now if he squats, he's going to say, I don't feel anything. It's not abnormal. It doesn't feel unstable. Why? Because we're driving the knee into varus. And we're driving the knee into the rotation where it takes the medial collateral ligament out of its stress. Again, if you look at this, we got adduction of the hip, we got internal rotation of the hip, and we got inversion of the foot. And so the key to our techniques are going to be, how do we position the hips? How do we position the feet? How do we position the body? What movements do we use, not only with the legs, but what movements do we use with the arms to facilitate the desired chain reaction to progressively stress the medial collateral ligament? The medial collateral ligament is going to say, I love this, because you're not waiting for everything to atrophy. You're not waiting way too long to 6 or 8 weeks to start things functionally. It says, I want functional stress now, but initially I want it to be as safe as possible, and based on my performance and also based on time, I want you to gradually progress me. So when Keith is at 6, 7, 8 weeks, the medial collateral ligament is going to say, the hip is well conditioned, the foot's well conditioned, the trunk's well conditioned. I have had the right amount of stress. I've been able to heal the way I want to heal with that normalized stress. Now we can really progress into the things that I need to do to get back to all the things I want to do, and especially get back to hockey. Keither, thanks for helping us on this one. As we know, we're at 6 weeks, but for our audience, we want to let them know kind of what we did from 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. So we're going to show them the progression. So if you're at week 3, as you remember, we did certain things and we didn't tweak way too far open, but now we can actually show that because the knee's ready to handle it. So we're going to take them through the squat progression, if you don't mind. So kind of get in the neutral position on the Precidos mat here. And what's nice about the Precidos mat is he doesn't have to know his biomechanics, I do. And all I have to know is where I want his foot to go in order to create the chain reaction on his right knee. So to get him started, I'm going to have to ask myself, I need to have him internally rotated, adducted, and supinated or inverted at the foot. How am I going to do that? Well, Keith, do me a big favor. Put your left foot right along number 3 along the long red line. Perfect. So I'm going to take a look at that knee, and I'll go, I like that. That's perfect. Now, I can say, hey, we can kind of do squats where he puts a little more weight on the left, or just kind of, I just want to know how he handles it at week 3. If I see the knee diving in, which you won't because I have it protected from the hip and from the foot. And so let's start some squats, just a little mini squats, good. And any discomfort whatsoever, let me know. My job is to watch the knee and watch the foot and watch the hip to make sure the foot stays inverted and make sure the hip stays adducted. And that's perfect. Now, what we would do then is basically teach him how to go from kind of partial weight bearing on that left to just toe touch. So while he's there, I'd say, okay, now see if so we're getting a little more full weight bearing on the right. Give me a few more squats. That's perfect. That's perfect, perfect. Now, you already know what the tweak progression here is going to be. We're going to go back to kind of partial weight bearing, so there's a little less stress on that right, but a new position, a new challenge. So Keith, if you don't mind, on this one, put your foot along number 1, okay? Just like that. That's perfect. Now, if I want a little less rotary stress to the knee, I'm going to keep his foot straight ahead. If I want to add a little bit more rotary stress and valgus to that right knee, I would just simply have him go to number 1, exactly, toed out. So let's go rectus right now. Let's have your foot straight ahead. Let's go through our squat. So now we'll notice here on the squat, as he goes down, I'm getting a little bit of baby version of the foot. And I'm not so adducted the hip, but because of my pelvis is forward here, it's still protecting. It's impossible for him to put abnormal stress. So let's go ahead and toe out a little bit on number 1, and let's go ahead and get our squats in. And again, this would probably be about at week 3.5. And now all of a sudden they say, hey, doing real good. Let's go toe touch on the left. So he's going to toe touch number 1, get into the squats. And one thing that I really like to do at this point is to also give him the variability of speed. A lot of times our patients will get so kind of like, am I doing it right? Let's get it going, get a little bit. Because again, I haven't protected. It's impossible for him to create abnormal stress to his medial collateral ligament. In fact, the medial collateral ligament right now at 3 to 4 weeks is saying, this is what I need, this is what I want, okay? So we already can see the flow of this thing. So now we're going to open him up a little bit and now say, okay, I want a little more valgus out of that right knee and I want a little more rotary stress. So Keith, all you have to do is put your foot right on 7 with your toe pointing me. Perfect. Now, if we get to take a look, come on in if you don't mind. And as you do this, Keith, go ahead and do your squat and basically show him that little bit of valgus. Good. Okay? Do it again. Valgus. Okay? We want a little bit. But this is around week 5. Week 6. So we've made this progression. Now, as he's doing good with that, he's doing great. I'm going to say, pick up the speed now for me. And as you get back out and kind of see a whole view of him now, you can see that he already knows what the progression is going to be. He's become a tweak expert. He's going to go partial weight bearing on the left. And all of a sudden now he can basically give me those squats and barely put his weight on here. Now, for the squats, to go to full weight bearing, we just simply go toe touch here to full weight bearing from number 3. Let's get 5 of each. Give me 5 real quick, just barely touching on that left. Good. 1, 2, 3. Now come to number 1, please. Let's go 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. And let's come to 7 with your toe pointed towards me, please. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. Wonderful progression for his squats, going from partial weight bearing to a little more weight bearing to now full weight bearing, where we know we have him protected, we have him safe, yet we're doing exactly what we need to do between week 3 and week 6, and that is put progressive, biomechanically consistent, functionally consistent stress to the medial collateral while we're strengthening the foot and ankle and while we're strengthening the hip. Great job, Keith. Keith, great job with the squats. A really nice progression, as you know, is with single leg balance and then driving our foot somewhere in space. Because now the foot and the hip, on the benefit of the knee, don't only have to appreciate gravity, ground reaction force, kind of a vertical compression, but now that medial collateral's got to say, whoa, you're going somewhere. Oh, you're not decelerating yourself and you got to come back home. So do me a favor. We're going to take them through the progression that we went through. Put your right foot on 8, and all we're going to do is when we do our balance touches, the strategy I want you to use is do toe touch until you feel comfortable, and then do a couple no toe touches. So our progression is going to be very similar to the squat progression because, again, I want to use this left leg to create a reaction of the right hip and right foot to protect the medial collateral ligament, and then we'll gradually show them what we did from week 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, before we go too deep into this, these progressions aren't linear. In other words, we don't do like a couple days of squats and then a couple days of balance reaches and then a couple days of lunges and a couple days of what we're going to show you next. You start to overlap them. So you do a little bit of each in the protective position, and if they tolerate it, then you can increase the stress. And so it's very important to realize that rehabilitation isn't going across the river, straight across the river. It's, as Dave Tiberi would say, you got to jump the rocks and go different places at different times. And of course, we call that tweakology. So just give me a little touch to 3 if you don't mind. Beautiful. Just a couple of those real quick, and then no toe touch. Good, good. Now give me to 2. Okay, little touch, and then no toe touch. And then give me to 1. Beautiful. Little touch, and then no toe touch. Good. And then let's come a little bit 4. Nice. Good. And no toe touch. And let's just come beyond 7 for me, please. Good. Good. Excellent. Now, again, if we wanted to tweak that further, when you went to 2 and 1 and 4 and 7, I would just have you toe it out, so I'd have you actually follow the red line. Okay? Now, what I'd like you to do is do that again. Just do one toe touch and one no toe touch, because what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring our professionals in on your knee so they can see it. Okay? So you who already get started, come on in. Start on 3, go to 2, 1, 4. Good. Watch that knee stays varus, so not much stress to the medial collateral. Up, medial collateral says, I feel a little bit now. And now it says, whoa, look at this. I got a little more eversion going on, and my hip's starting to open up. Whoa, now we're going. Now we're talking a little more valgusine, so to speak. Now that knee says, look at the abduction I got now. And now just do your toe out at 1, 4, and 7 for me, please. So you're just going to do your toe out touch. Good. Now the knee's going to say, whoa, look what happens now when he drives that open. Now look what that knee's doing. So if you come on and sneak on back again, you can really see that's a beautiful progression. And again, the medial collateral ligament at week 2 or 3 doesn't want to go here. Okay? It's not ready to go here. But as Keith is successful, having us tweak his position and his drive, we can all of a sudden say, well, wait a minute, we can get him going and doing a lot of things that are functional, that are extremely safe, but that the medial collateral ligament wants to have in its life, because its whole goal is to be the medial collateral ligament again. And without the body and the forces of the body and ground reaction force and gravity and mass momentum of the body teaching it, it will never know. So great job on that. Now we're going to show you kind of our 3-week progression, week 3, 4, 5, and 6 for what we call balance reaches with the hand. So this is a top-down driver. So if you don't mind, Keith, let's get in, let's go put your right foot on number 9 for me, please. And now what we're going to do is we're going to position you so you're mostly weight bearing on the right, but you're going to toe touch, and you're going to toe touch on number 4 for me, please. So now you're going to toe touch number 4. I got you extended. I got you a little bit internally rotated, but I got a little bit of valgus going on the knee, but you're protected. So if you did squats that way, you're great. But now what we're going to do is say, hey, hands, can you protect us even more? So all I want you to do is take your hands overhead, barely touch on that left toe, and just come on down and just give me some nice reaches down and forward. And as you can see, we're getting the hip to go, wait a minute, I'm giving you more flexion. The calf is being kicked in. So we're really facilitating muscles that are going to ultimately protect the medial collateral ligament without any abnormal stress to the medial collateral. Now, perfect job, Keith. We can immediately then, as he does that well, we can go into the frontal plane. Well, in the frontal plane, we got to say, okay, if he's positioned this way, what do I want the knee to do? Well, initially, I want it to go into a little bit of adduction or varus stress. So we're going to ask him to simply take his hands to the left, and I'll double check to make sure that's what I want. And get ahead, perfect. Okay, a little less weight on this guy, a little more weight on that right, good, because I want that right leg doing most of the work. Now you can see some good frontal plane stress, but the knee is basically going into varus again. We're getting a little bit of inversion of the hip because that hip's being driven into adduction. Now in the transverse plane, we go, okay, wait a minute, what do I want here? Well, I want to wind the hip up to strengthen the big rotators, because those big butt rotators decelerate the motion that really picks on the medial collateral. And I want to invert the foot. So all you're going to do here is, again, toe touch, but you're going to take your hands around the corner to the right. Perfect. Around the corner to the right, great. So the hip's going, I like this, and a little less weight on that left side, good. So that right hip says, whoa, I'm internally rotating, decelerating, coming back home. The knee says, whoa, this is great, no abnormal stress to me whatsoever. Perfect. Now, the position that we would do to change that, to keep what we would call safety with the hands, but do a bottom up, make it a little more risky for the knee, bottom up. You already know where we're going to go. Put your right foot on 6 for me, please. And now toe touch on 7. So now he's opened up. In fact, let's go ahead and toe touch with our 45. Good. Now again, we look at that right knee and says, ooh, that right knee kind of at least being driven from that left leg is being created a little bit of that valgus rotation we were talking about. Not a lot, but a little bit, because he's protected with this left leg down. And you go, I bet you they're going to go through the same sequence with the hands, and you'd be entirely correct. So just give me about 3 quick flexions, 3 quick left lateral flexions. And again, what we need to be looking at all the time is the hip and the foot, because if the hip and the foot are doing what we want, then that knee is going to be doing what we want. We can protect it. Now again, we got a lot of, it's opened up from the left leg, that right knee, but now we're basically creating the chain reaction that we want. Perfect. Good. Great job. Now, that's called basically tweaking in and tweaking out. We basically tweaked out the ability of this leg to protect itself by the position of here, but we tweaked in the butt in 3 planes of motion with the hands. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a tweak, a safety tweak for the foot bottom up, but then we're going to go the opposite directions with the hands. So go ahead and put your right foot on 6 again. Let's go back to 1 for me, please. And now go as much weight bearing as you can on that right side toe touch. Now what you're going to do is give me your extension, okay? Now, again, this is real critical because after medial collateral ligament involvement, injuries, or any type of injury where you're kind of off weight bearing for a little bit, we lose that hip extension. And we see, I need to get that hip extension out of them. Now we're going to talk to the knee a little bit. You're going to take your lateral flexion to me now. Perfect. Now look at that knee. You can see that whole body sway. You can kind of see that knee go in a little bit, but again, it's being protected toe touch over here. Now we're going to really open you up. Keith, do me a favor. You're going to rotate now to the left. So you're going to rotate to the left. Good job. Rotate to the left. Excellent. And rotate to the left. Beautiful. Now, again, what I appreciate is I already know what your next progression is. You're going to say, wait a minute, he's going to feed out bottom up, and he's going to feed out top down, and now he's going to ask the knee, can you really handle this? And you're going to say, I bet you they did that kind of between week 5 and 6 based on his performance, and you're entirely correct. Okay, so let's go to our 6, take our left foot to 7 with opened up. Great job. Let's get as much weight as we can. Give me a couple extensions. Great job, I need that. The knee is going not too much into valgusing. Now let's go our frontal plane. Now it's going a lot more into valgusing. Great job, a little more eversion. And now watch what happens. Whoa, that's the big one. That's the big one that really kind of opens it up. Again, he's being protected by this, and he's being protected because he's not taking his whole body weight with massive momentum as he's going to have to do when he's on the ice. So great progression. We can increase the speed. We could actually put weights in your hand to make that even more of a progression and kind of go from there. Great job. Keith, so far, everything we've done to stress the medial collateral ligament biomechanically, functionally, appropriately, very safely, yet progressively, has been with the right leg on the ground. Everything has either been driven by the opposite foot or by the hands. But now we're going to say, okay, right foot, you got to go somewhere, and okay, foot and hip, start protecting my knee. So we're going to go through a series of lunges. Now, a lunge isn't a lunge, it is a lunge. I can lunge way far, make it very aggressive. I can start with baby lunges, which we, of course, do at that week 3. And, of course, my speed of my lunge is going to be varied too. We're just going to do kind of what we call self-selected lunge right now. So why don't you put your left foot just outside of number 4 for me, please. And what we're going to do now is just go to number 9. So just going to lunge to number 9 and then come back home. Good. And if you, again, you look at this right knee, we're creating a little varus and a little bit of flexion here. So everything's coming, all the force is coming out here. He's loading his hip. He's loading his lateral calf work, and he's saying, hey, listen, I'm getting conditioned to help you medial collateral, but the medial collateral says, well, I don't feel any abnormal stress right now, and we'd say that's the whole purpose. So we're going to tweak through this. Now he's going to go to number 6 for me, please. So now again, flexion, again, no abduction whatsoever in the knee. In fact, a little bit of adduction because we're going here, but we get that foot hitting, and the body likes to load the butt. Now we're going to go to number 3. Now, because we're going to number 3, again, we're going to be driving the knee into varus, but we can see we're starting to get that calcaneus thinking about wanting to evert. So now, do me a favor, take your left foot to go to 7 for me, please. And now go to 2 with your right foot. Now we see the knee saying, wait a minute, I feel the calcaneus kind of evert a little bit. So I'm getting a little bit of abduction at the knee, which we want right now. And then do me a favor, go right just to number 1, please. Now this is more gait-like. And so foot hits the ground, calcaneus everts, hip goes through flexion, right hip goes through adduction, knee goes in a little bit. That's exactly what we want. So we can start that progression even at week 3, week 4, because he's very, very safe. If you don't think he's really safe, you can always grab his hands while he does that. That sometimes will kind of give him some confidence there and say, and just find out how much pressure he puts on the hands. Now, what we need to do is we need to start tweaking a little more of that knee into abduction. You already have an idea where we're going to go. Let's go left foot on 9 for me, please. And now what I want you to do is let's start with 3. Give me 3 at 3, give me 3 at 2, and then 3 at 1 for me, please. Good job. Now again, this procedure mat makes my job easy because all I have to do is tell him a number. I don't have to kind of explain to him, and what he likes to know is, am I successful? You give somebody a target, they know, yeah, I went to 2, he told me to go to 2. Now look what the right knee's doing now. Now we're getting that abduction I want. Now go to 1, we're going to get a lot more. So this is kind of week 5, week 6. That's what I want. Calcaneus is going through, eversion. Knees going through abduction of that valgus stress. The hip saying, whoa, I'm putting at a little mechanical disadvantage here, and therefore, hopefully, you've proven yourself through the progression of tweakology that you can handle that. Now, here's the beauty of the lunges. we can now redo the lunges by feeding in the hands. And you would already know that, wait a minute, feeding in means if he lunged with the right foot, he would do his flexion with his hands. He would basically, I want to make sure I get adduction out of the hip. My hands would go opposite of my lunge leg, and then I would rotate the same way as my lunge leg. So that would be protecting it. Ultimately, at week 6, we want to take the butt out of it even more top down. And so do me a favor, let's go through that same progression, left foot on 9. We're going to go 3, 2, 1. Give me one each with taking your hands up and back where we're going to take extension and taking that butt out of that just a little bit. And so we'll take a peek at that right knee again. Beautiful. Good job. Nice job. Again, when he does that, as soon as he comes up, and you can try this yourself, it's pretty neat. If I let this happen, the butt helps me decelerate that. As soon as I take my hands up, it takes it away. So if I'm coming over here and I'm letting my butt cheat that, the butt says, I'll help you medial collateral. But guess what? When you go here, all of a sudden it says, oh, I can't help you as much. And therefore, the real question is that going to happen on the ice? Yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen in dailies of activity of living. Now, same progression now, but now we're going to take the butt out of it. So what you're going to do is take your hands to the right in the frontal plane. You got it. You got it? So we already see a little bit of valgusing going on there. A lot more valgusing and a lot more, which we call abduction or valgusing. And then go, whoa, that's a tough one. Hopefully he's proven himself by now, and that's why the power of tweakology, because you'll never allow him to do that unless you see him do maybe a couple degrees before it. The beautiful thing about applied functional science is we always build on success. And we're hopefully like the teacher who never gives a test unless he or she knows the student's going to get an A+. Because if I prepared Keith, nothing should be a surprise to me. I should never overstress him, but I should keep him on the threshold of stress. Last plane of motion. On this one, what you're going to do, if I lunged and did this, it's going to wind the butt up. But if I do this, it's going to basically take the butt out of it and drive my knee more into abduction. So same progression for me. Nice and easy for me, please. Good job. Go to 2. Nice. And now go to 1. Beautiful. Great. Again, we would do more reps than that. We just wanted you to see the chain reaction biomechanics because you go, whoa, wait a minute, this is great. Because he could change the speed, they could change the distance of the lunge. We can basically change putting weights in the hand to actually let the weights help turn on the butt more and help the weights basically turn the butt off a little bit but pour stress through the body. Now, what's beautiful about lunging is it now sets us up for that next progression where we're going to going somewhere in space and going into a single leg balance. So our lunge to balances would be next. And then our lunges to basically a little baby leap would be next. And of course, what would be next then is the proper biomechanical progression, which we're going to be talking a lot about on our app here with our jumping, with our jopping, with our hopping. All we know now is that week 6, Keith has a nice stable knee. He has a knee that basically says, thank you, Keith, for doing what you did with your trunk, with your hip, and with your foot. Thanks for giving me a gradual progression. And thanks for giving me a functional progression, because now when I just do things at home already, I feel very comfortable making that left-hand turn, where before that left-hand turn wasn't all that fun. And so, again, we're at week 6. We have a nice progression to go to ultimately allow him to get to where he wants to go. But at week 6, we have a knee that's well on its way to being functionally and effectively rehabilitated. Great job, Keith. I really appreciate it.